It was the New Orleans Saints' best case scenario to have both offensive tackles, Trevor Penning and Taliese Fuaga, on the field for them in 2024, but the way that they're going about it might not be the best choice. We got all of that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a senior writer and reporter over at Saints News Network. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, we're taking a look at some other big stories from the first week of OTAs. We got more Marshawn Lattimore commitment from Dennis Allen. We saw a little bit of a interesting usage of Taysom Hill, as well as some confirmations about how Taysom Hill's role might not be changing very much, except for growing in 2024. We're going to lead everything off here with whether or not Trevor Penning is actually moving over to right tackle and why that might not be the best choice for the New Orleans Saints, because what they're prioritizing doesn't feel like what should be prioritized. We got all that coming up for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints. We appreciate you very much, as always, making us your first listen of the day every day, and for being an everydayer here on the Locked On Saints podcast, which is a proud part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Tell you more about Game Time later. Now we're going to take a look at what's going on with Trevor Penning and Taliese Fuaga. We saw during OTA practice number 1 on Tuesday, Taliese Fuaga playing at left tackle, Trevor Penning playing at right tackle. We thought that this might be a possibility just for information gathering purposes, which when Dennis Allen talks about it, that kind of feels like what it is. But John Benton, the New Orleans Saints offensive line coach, telling other reporters that spoke with him during Dennis Allen's press conference that, well, this might be the fresh start that Trevor Penning was looking for. So could this mean that the Saints might actually be looking at Trevor Penning playing right tackle long term and moving Taliese Fuaga to left tackle? And is that the right choice? I got to be honest, my immediate inclination is no. However, the New Orleans Saints do have a track record of making this work. We'll take a look at that just a little bit because I'm willing to be wrong here. I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying I have a point of view, that I have an opinion. And right now, my point of view and my opinion is that this ain't great. Because what this feels like to me is that the team is prioritizing the potential longevity of Trevor Penning over the readiness of Taliese Fuaga. And I don't know that that's the right way to go about this. We saw Trevor Penning start at left tackle for 6 games, and somehow that was enough to decide, you know what? Trying to develop him at the position that he has played his entire career is not worth the time anymore. Let's move him over to the right side where he still faces elite pass rushers, where he has to learn how to do everything backwards, and where he's also still learning a new system. Take him out of his comfort zone and have him start on the other side. Is that really the best choice for New Orleans? Now, this might not be set in stone. I think that the conversation and the quote from John Benton might mean something else, right? John Benton said that they wanted to give Trevor Penning a fresh start and that their idea was to move him to right tackle no matter what they did in the draft, whether they draft their first round tackle or not. I'm curious, did he mean moving Trevor Penning to right tackle permanently? Or did he simply mean moving Trevor Penning to right tackle to see how he does there over the course of OTAs, mandatory mini camps, rotating him in during training camp? The Saints do this all the time. They cross-train their offensive linemen. Not just their rookie offensive linemen. All of their offensive linemen. Landon Young, for instance, who was drafted a few years ago out of Kentucky, part of that big blue wall, they called it, in Kentucky for that really outstanding offensive line. He spent a lot of time and spends the majority of his time at right tackle behind Ryan Ramcyk, but also has played on the interior and even took snaps at left tackle during this year's OTA. So we see the Saints do this quite a bit. So do we think or know that Trevor Penning has been moved to right tackle permanently Or do we think or know that Trevor Penning has simply been moved to right tackle during this sort of exploratory process? If the answer is already permanently and they went in pre-calculated going, we're going to move Trevor Penning to right tackle, I get a little bit concerned because then it feels like a guy that was your ready-made starter at right tackle in Taliese Fuaga is now going to have to learn how to play on the opposite side of his body as a rookie, as he's transitioning to the NFL. Now, maybe that's good timing though, right? Get him in. Hey, you're learning a lot of new stuff. Let's get you to learn this additional new thing. Hey, Trevor, you're learning a new system. Let's get you to learn this new thing. My concerns with this process aren't really about Taliese Fuaga or Trevor Penning. My concerns with this process is the decision-making of the New Orleans Saints and whether or not this is the right course of action. That's where my concern is. Now, we won't know until they actually get out on the field, not even during OTAs, not even during mandatory minicamp, not even during training camp. But really, we don't get the opportunity to know whether or not this is the right choice until the Saints actually play some games. And then you can learn too quickly and too late all at the same time. And that's the scary part about doing something like this, instead of keeping people where they are comfortable and not taking them outside of their comfort zone. However, we have seen, as I mentioned before, the Saints have success doing this. Erik McCoy came in out of Texas A&M, not as a career center, but as a guard with center versatility. He was the Saints' best offensive lineman last year playing at center, and he probably had his best season of his career playing at center last year. Dennis Allen even said that unsolicited on Tuesday during the OTA presser. Cesar Ruiz came in out of Michigan as a center with guard versatility, just played his best career season as a pro at guard and has held up well there. Slimmed down as well this offseason, went from 325 to 314. He's ready to move. He's ready to be his athletic self in this new offense. Ryan Ramcyk, career left tackle. Played a lot of left tackle during his time over at Wisconsin. Got moved over to right tackle because when he was drafted, the Saints had ding, 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 Teron Armstead. Great work. Over on the left side, you're not benching him. You let him walk in free agency, unfortunately, but you're not benching him. And that worked out great. What has potentially put an end to Ryan Ramcyk's time isn't his playing ability. It's not his talent. It's an injury that he doesn't have any control over. It's a, what do you call it? Degenerative knee issue. That's not on him. That's not on the Saints. So those things worked out. Maybe they find it again. Maybe they get it right again. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see. The way that I look at this is it's an opportunity for information gathering, right? If Trevor Penning can't pan out at left tackle and then you feel like he does better at right tackle, then sure, maybe you can swap him over. If Trevor Penning doesn't pan out at left tackle, you want to know if Taliese Fuaga can participate and start at left tackle because you feel better about who your option behind Fuaga would be at right tackle than you feel about any of your other options behind Trevor Penning at left tackle. Sure. Makes perfect sense. And then the other option is that you're just looking at this so that you start these guys in their natural positions, Penning at left tackle, Fuaga at right tackle, and then maybe you make the switch later on in the season if you see them struggling at those positions. But until you actually get the opportunity to see them struggle at the positions that they play, especially for Fuaga, why move them? Why move them? But I don't know. We'll see. This is one that I could be very wrong about. The Saints could walk in with Taliese Fuaga at left tackle, Trevor Penning at right tackle, and have one of the better offensive lines in the NFL for all I know, right? We don't know yet. We just simply don't know yet. But, man, it just feels like one of those things where it's like, are you too smart for your own good sometimes? You know what I mean? You got a really, really good idea. You want to run with it, but does it bite you? So we'll see which way it goes. And obviously, there are other possibilities that I didn't even get to discuss. That's why we do this show 5 days a week. We're going to talk about this more in tomorrow's episodes. We appreciate you very much for being here with us. Coming up next, we're going to take a look at Taysom Hill and why his role, even under center, won't be diminishing. In fact, it sounds like it's going to be expanding. Let's break that down as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by friends at Yahoo Finance, the #1 destination for all of the best investors out there. And I didn't used to be an investor. I'm just now getting into investments. And the only reason why I'm comfortable with it It's because of my friends over at Yahoo Finance who give you everything that you need to and help you really get straight to the point with everything, help you grow your portfolio, deal with the rising costs of inflation, pay your debt, your mortgage, pretty much everything in terms of anything standing in your way from financial freedom. They're going to be able to help you figure out, get access to the news, data, and tools to help you in order to reach that financial freedom. This is why I love Yahoo Finance. This is why the best love Yahoo Finance. For a comprehensive financial news and analysis destination, visit the brand behind every great investor, Yahoo Finance, the #1 financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That is yahoofinance.com. All right, family. New Orleans Saints offensive weapon Taysom Hill might be getting up there in terms of age, and you're going to hear all those types of conversations over the course of the offseason from the talking heads. But you know what? The guy plays a really important role with the New Orleans Saints, and it doesn't sound like that role is diminishing. In fact, it sounds like that role is expanding. We appreciate you very much for being here, making us your first listen of the day every day here on the Locked On Saints podcast. Don't forget to also go and check out Locked On Sports Today. Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today. ESPN, Fox Sports are all out there yelling and screaming at each other. If you want to get the biggest stories from the local experts that know the teams the best because they cover the teams 5 days a week, just like we do here at Locked On Saints, go and check out Locked On Sports Today in the 24/7 stream. First ever national sports 24/7 stream on YouTube. You can find it there. You can also find it on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Proud part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Don't you just love some Taysom Hill? Don't you just love some Taysom Hill? You gotta love some Taysom Hill, right? And the way that he has been utilized in this New Orleans Saints offense, everywhere from kick returner to punt coverage to kick coverage to receiver to tight end to running back, lead blocker, fullback, quarterback, running as a quarterback. He plays so much. He's done everything but defense. And I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up actually performing well on defense as well. Put him next to Demario Davis and see what that looks like. A lot of concerns came about with the new New Orleans Saints offensive scheme, which is like that wide zone scheme, a lot of zone runs and things like that. When you think about those zone runs, you think about those runs that get to the outside, that get players out in space, offensive line moving off the football, all these sort of fancy, very athletic things. When you think about Taysom Hill in the run game, you think about power, right? The power run right up the middle, the QB power, all these other things. And a lot of people were asking me before the season began, hey, with this new wide zone offense, does it feel like Taysom Hill's role, particularly as a runner, might end up going away? A runner at quarterback, for instance, end up going away, or not, for instance, specifically. Well, no. Come to find out, it doesn't. Doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. Let me tell you why. So I don't think I was ever really sold on the idea that Taysom Hill under center at quarterback was going to cease being a thing in this New Orleans Saints offense. I think a part of the draw of being an offensive coordinator and play caller for the New Orleans Saints is the cool stuff. You feel me? Stuff that you get to do with Taysom Hill and the ability to be able to utilize him as a passer, as a runner, as a receiver, as a runner at quarterback, as a runner out of the backfield, as a lead blocker. You get the idea. Heck, they even ran a fullback option with him years ago against the Chicago Bears. Still one of my favorite plays of all time, even though it was like good, wasn't phenomenal, didn't put points on the board, but man, that was a cool play call. Love that kind of stuff. And I think maybe those are some of the things you could potentially see added to Taysom Hill's repertoire. Maybe instead of just QB powers all the time, you're going to be seeing some QB sweeps. Maybe outside of that, you might see some actual option plays. How fun would that be? Not just the read option, but the actual like run option with the pitch. Old NCAA college video game type stuff. This was my favorite part. I can't wait for the new college football game, man. I cannot wait. That was my favorite part about that, was being able to run those triple options and things like that. I don't think you're going to see triple options in New Orleans Saints offense. Let me be real clear. But you might see that option on the pitch, rolling to the outside. There could be some interesting things about what the New Orleans Saints do. Brett Martell of the Associated Press asked Dennis Allen on Tuesday, do you see a de-emphasis coming de-emphasis coming for Taysom Hill under center? Dennis Allen simply said no. And then we all laughed because, boy, that was actually pretty funny. And then he actually looked at the cameras and said, as if he was talking to the other teams around the NFL, and said, start game planning. Loved it. Loved it. Want more of that attitude. Love that attitude. Where I think you can also see Taysom Hill's game plan expand is his usage in the backfield a little bit more. Now, we've seen it a few times, right? Taysom Hill either as a lead blocker or Taysom Hill as a running back and things like that. And it always seems like that was one of those things that we would see early on in the season, and they would just kind of dissipate after that as the team kind of forgot that, it always felt like there were those games where the team just like forgets that Taysom Hill exists. I don't think we're going to be seeing that very much this season, because this offensive staff seems to be really excited about what Taysom Hill brings to the game plan. And that makes sense. He's an exciting player, and he's one of your most effective players as well. Go look at the touchdowns over the course of the past 3 years. Look who's at the top. You know what I mean? Or look who's near the top. Taysom Hill. So, and take the passing touchdowns out of it. Let's be fair. Take the passing touchdowns out of it. Just look at the rushing and passing or look at the rushing and receiving touchdowns, and Taysom Hill's near the top there. So, I think that another place where you could see the potential role expand is him playing a little bit more fullback. And then all of a sudden, we're into Kyle Juszczyk territory. And this was a big conversation over the course of the offseason when the Saints brought in Klint Kubiak. And, we kind of learned during the Senior Bowl that this was going to be the case and whatever. That like, okay, so who plays the Deebo Samuel role? Who plays the Kyle Juszczyk role? And we have to remember that Klint Kubiak did only spend one season in San Francisco. But even though he only spent one season in San Francisco, it's not like he didn't see what was going on in San Francisco before he got there, which probably led him to taking the job with San Francisco, because it's like, I want to learn how to implement those things in my office. It's not like you just show up in San Francisco and go, okay, I'm here. You know what I mean? And then not grow, not change. So you have to imagine that part of wanting to take that San Francisco job was a little bit about learning about what Kyle Shanahan was doing and how some of those sort of, I'm not going to use the word gimmick players because I don't think that that's fair. So what I'm going to use instead is utility player, and even beyond utility player, let's say positionless players, right? These players that are multi-use, multi-dimensional, right? Multifaceted, whatever it is that you want to say. And Taysom Hill is perfect for that kind of game plan. As a guy that could be a lead blocker out of the backfield, sure, but could also run a route into the flats, catch passes, get north and south, and run somebody over if he needs to on the sideline. He's also somebody that can run a route from up the middle of the formation where he looks like he's setting up to block, but then breaks up the middle and then cuts towards the outside, and bam, you're getting him the ball down from the line of scrimmage and giving him the opportunity to be in space and get those opportunities down the field. He's also a guy that could just simply run a deep route for you if you want him to, and can run a route from out of the backfield on a wheel route. Wheel routes? Did he say it? Yes, I did. These are the things that I think should be a part of what Taysom Hill is doing in 2024. We'll see what he does get to be a part of in 2024, but it does not sound like his role is dissipating in any way. Instead, actually, it sounds like his role is going to grow. And I think that's wise, because, boy, if there's one question that I think Saints fans are tired of being asked, especially a week after Taysom Hill balls out and has a great game, is where's Taysom? The hope is that in 2024, you won't have to ask that question anymore. Coming up next, let's take a look at more Marshon Lattimore commitments. Dennis Allen just being outright about Marshon Lattimore and his return in 2024. We got that coming up for you as we continue on and wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends at Game Time. You know the New Orleans Saints schedule is out, and there are so many exciting games. You get the home opener to begin the season right off the bat, week 1, up against the Carolina Panthers. They're back week 3, hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. Always a fun game. Will the Philadelphia Eagles be able to bounce back from their pitiful end of the 2023 season, or will the New Orleans Saints be able to eke out a surprising one there? It's not going to take long before Thursday Night Football. Denver Broncos, Sean Payton back in town later on in the year. Las Vegas Raiders coming to town. You get the Derek Carr narrative there. So much stuff going on with the New Orleans Saints 2024 season. And the best place to grab those tickets, whether months in advance or moments in advance, is Game Time. But I highly recommend, if you're like me and you like to be spontaneous, Game Time is your spot for last minute tickets. And they'll take all the guesswork out for you. When you can get all that guesswork taken out by buying tickets at Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. The New Orleans Saints and Dennis Allen giving another pretty firm commitment to Marshon Lattimore's return in 2024, and that will make the New Orleans Saints better this year. We appreciate you very much, as always, for being here for another episode of Locked On Saints. We appreciate you very much, of course, for being here. Don't forget, we are your team every day. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to dive a little bit more into the makeup of the offensive line that we saw during OTAs, what that could mean for the New Orleans Saints, where they could still go out there and find talent, left guard, left tackle, all the places where they can continue to do that. We're going to go offensive line heavy because that has been such a huge storyline so far this offseason. But I want to give you a little bit of a download on what we saw from Derek Carr at OTAs as well. So we'll also circle back to that in tomorrow's episode as well. We're going to lead everything off looking at offensive line again. We appreciate you very much for being here for another episode. Let's get to our final topic today. Marshon Lattimore. Yes, the Marshon Lattimore conversations continue. Will he be traded? Will he not be traded? It has been going on since January 3rd, something like that, like early January, late December, when the New Orleans Saints went back, redid his contract, converted a big portion of his 2024 salary to an option bonus that sets in a week before the season begins, and we all went ruh-roh. Ruh-roh. They said they could potentially trade him. And it kind of felt like the timeline between that would be like June 2nd, so post June 1. The reason why you wait until after June 1 is because when you trade somebody away after June 1, instead of all of the dead cap that's sitting on their contract rushing up to the moment where you trade them away, it defers about, a little bit of that. So that's helpful. Very, very helpful. And then it felt like the timeline was like the week before the season, which is when that option bonus would set in. And by the way, when that option bonus sets in, it sets in already restructured, right? Sets in already prorated over the course of the next few years. So it's not going to be a big old lump sum that hits. It's going to kind of allow them to still be in control of their salary cap, which was a big goal for this offseason and will be a big goal next offseason. And in 2026, I think you'll see this team breathe a little bit more, unless that 2025 salary cap is higher than expected, just like the 2024 one was. So despite all of those trade talks and all those other things, which let's not get it twisted, if the Saints would have traded away Marshon Lattimore, they would have become a worse team. That is my genuine opinion. The defense would have gotten worse. Anytime that you lose a lockdown corner on the outside, no matter how much you've been able to produce without him and injuries and, all those kinds of things, having to just be a team without him is a whole different thing. Now, the trade could still happen, but Dennis Allen talked during the New Orleans Saints Hall of Fame Celebrity Golf Classic, where he said that he and Marshon Lattimore had a conversation 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was positive. Things are moving forward. And then we all kind of went, well, what does positive mean? What does moving forward mean? And so Kat Terrell over at ESPN doing a great job asking some clarifying questions on that about like, what were the conversations? Was there things that needed to be cleared up? What was the positive nature of all of it? Dennis Allen kind of laid it out like, look, there's a lot of conversation outside of the building about trades and things like that. Wanted to clear the air, and then he went on to basically say that when he returns to the team, they're ready to bring him in with open arms. I wouldn't expect to see him until maybe mandatory mini camp, training camp. Like he's definitely not going to be out there during voluntary OTAs. I don't think he's participated in OTAs since like the NFL kind of said, what, OTAs don't matter back in 2020. And a lot of players went, bet, great, good to know you feel that way. And then haven't participated in OTAs since then. I don't blame him for it. Okay, I would stay away too. Just on the defensive side, same coaching staff, same scheme, all this other stuff, like, what's going on. So he might be there during mandatory minicamp, which would be like mid-June, June 11 through 13. But training camp is really the thing that matters the most. So if that ends up being the case, I do believe that it makes New Orleans Saints a better team. Okay. And I say better team, not just as good a team as they were last year when they also had him on the roster, but I'm just thinking about you can expect a little bit of it's reasonable, warranted to expect a little bit of a leap from Isaac Yiadom to Kool-Aid McKinstry. Okay. That's all that I mean. Fourth cornerback wise, it feels like you can expect a little bit of a leap there. Now, let's see how that all pans out. Kool-Aid McKinstry still listed, by the way, on the Saints OTA roster as unsigned draft pick. So there was a report that came out with a video of him buying his mom a car and all these other things, which is incredible. But it included some details about him signing a contract. The Saints themselves are still listing him as an unsigned draft pick. So I can't officially say that he's been signed at this point. But that's okay. Yeah, I don't expect his contract to be done until training camp because I don't expect any second round contracts to be done until training camp. And if it gets done earlier, good news. That's fine. So I almost went into Wicked there. My theater background almost came out. So when it comes to keeping Marshawn Lattimore, I think one of the reasons why it helps to elevate your defense is because you get 4 solid starting corners. And let's just face it, 17-game season, most people ain't playing 17 games. It ain't happening. So having a good fourth cornerback moves the needle for you. And having a really, really good, really, really talented, really, really experienced corner that you can end up turning to, big. And when I say experienced, I mean he played a ton of snaps at Alabama because he was a starter from the very beginning. And he played in a system that is like basically what the New Orleans Saints play here. So like that's the other piece of it for me that I think is really important. And I think that that's part of what makes this team better. And keeping Marshawn Lattimore, who can lock down an entire half of the field for you, inherently makes you better than not having Marshawn Lattimore, who can lock down half of the field for you. And then you've got Paulson Adebo, who balled out last year, going into a contract year this year, set to ball out again this year. Very excited to see how it all works out. But keeping Marshawn Lattimore, I think, is the big thing. Now, the interesting thing is the potential that, he does get moved anyway, right? Because you got from June 1st to the week before the season kicks off, if some team out there gets really desperate because they have an injury during training camp at the position and they're willing to throw the bag at New Orleans to get Marshawn Lattimore over to them, then look, Mickey Loomis even said it, there's a price for everybody. And I think a lot of general managers would agree with that. So there's still a chance that ends up happening, okay? It's not said and done. It's not set in stone. It's not written. Okay. Any of these things could change. But if he does end up indeed being on the roster in 2024, what it does also do is create a potential ripple effect amongst the other cornerbacks. Does Paulson Adebo get his second contract? Does Alontae Taylor stay in the slot? Is he okay to stay in the slot? Does Kool-Aid McKinstry take over in the slot? Like there's still so many of those little storylines that will end up coming up from it. So whether the Saints do I would say surprisingly at this point, trade away Marshawn Lattimore, big time story. If the Saints keep Marshawn Lattimore, which is kind of where things seem to be leaning right now, still some big time storylines to come out of that, because what's the future of guys like Paulson Adebo, Alontae Taylor? You know the future of Kool-Aid McKinstry. He's on a rookie deal. He ain't going nowhere, all that. So, or he's in a rookie year. Let me say it more appropriately that way. Because Alontae Taylor and Paulson Adebo are on rookie contracts too, but they're in different states of their rookie contract than Kool-Aid McKinstry is. So we'll see which way it goes. But boy, I'll tell you what, between the offensive line, between the quarterbacks, they're like the young rookie and second year quarterbacks, and Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener with the ongoing now Superdome disputes where, LSCC is saying that the Saints haven't paid their 11 point whatever million dollars, and the Saints are saying, hey, bro, we ain't pay that because we asked you for papers and you ain't sent us no papers, so we ain't paying you. I'm not going to sit here and talk about that because I don't know nothing about business. I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to talk football. But all I'm trying to say is that rich with storylines all offseason. That's why we do 5 days a week, every week, until we go to 2-a-days for training camp. So we appreciate you very much. As always, making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day for your second listen. Locked On LSU with Caroline Fenton. Locked On Pelicans with my boy Jake Madison. Go and check them out. See what's going on all around Locked On Louisiana. Thank you very much, as always, for making us a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, please say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.
Nation.